All right, here we are at the workbench. Now, if you go down to Harbor Freight or your local tool store, discount tool store, you should be able to pick up a cheap set of punches. This was $4. And this is the size I need. I don't even know what size this is, but it's one of the smaller ones in the set. And you need yourself a hammer. Now, this is a ball peen hammer. You can tell by the wear on this thing, I use it a lot. My tools get used. Now, one of the first things I'm going to do is take off this red dot here because it's in the way. And I like the screw, easy access screw here that I can use a penny if I need to get that off. Next thing you want to do is open this thing up. Just like that. Now, down inside of here is an Allen bolt. You can see. We're going to get an Allen wrench to remove that. One of the best things you can do is invest in a nice set of T-handled Allen wrenches. Makes jobs like this very easy to do. And you just loosen that bad boy up. And out it comes, because it's magnetic. Woohoo! All right. Now, this thing, you might want to save. I don't know, somebody might want to buy it from you someday, though I don't know why. But once you try a Hogue grip on this thing, you will never want to go back to this again. All right, so I'm going to start out trying the Hogue grip with the finger grooves. It just feels so superior to me. When I have my hand on this thing, there's no way it's getting away. Now, my Sig556 pistol would not fit on here. I had to file it down. And it looks like it's going to be the same situation with this. This little metal right here is just too wide for these things here to be able to fit on it. Oh, by the way, if you ever have anybody tell you that this trigger, this plunger here is what activates the trigger, it's not true at all. When you have the grip off, you'll realize this is just a spring and a plunger that are designed to give you a second stage to your trigger. That's all they do. They just warn you that you're coming up close to the brake. It gives you that little tactile feel when you pull the trigger back. That's all it is. If you were to disengage that, you would have no way of knowing when the trigger was going to break unless you just get really, really used to it. That's all there is to it. Now, one thing I noticed that came out of here was this little tiny spring. Very, very small. It goes in this hole right here. And this is the spring that allows your pin detent to have tension. There's probably a little ball in there, so watch that. Your grip holds it in place. Don't let it get away. So I'm going to set it aside. All right, now what I used on the last one was this file. You could probably use a Dremel tool. You could probably use a pocket knife. This surface is really flat, and a file will give you a nice flat cut on here. You don't need to take off all that much. But plastic doesn't wear very easily, so you want to just be patient, take your time, and check periodically to make sure that you don't take off too much, because you don't want this thing to be loose. And you want to take off equal amounts off of either side. Now, this is not easy to do for the camera. It's a lot easier to do on the last one because I had it in my lap. But we'll get there. It's closer. I could almost force it on, but I don't want to force anything. If you need more pressure, you can set it on the table and you can push down harder that way. See, this is plastic dust. Shows me I'm getting somewhere. so close. A little more. There we go. It's going on. Now you want it to be tight. Now before I put this on here for the last time, I'm going to put my little spring back in here. And I found out there is no detent ball in there. It's just the spring pushing on the groove of the takedown pin. So that's okay. It works just fine. This is one of the best takedown pins I've ever come across. And then we want to put this guy back on here and line it up. You want it snug. And then here's the really difficult part. You want to get the nut out of here. Because you're going to need this. This is a lock nut. And inside of here is a hex hole that you can get this thing into. But here's the hard part. You've got to be able to drop this into that hex hole way in the bottom of here. Some needle nose pliers would be really nice. I don't happen to have any handy. And then you've got to hold it in that hex hole while you screw the bolt in so that it doesn't push out. So it wasn't easy, but basically I made a game out of it. If you bounce it up and down enough, eventually it'll go in. And you can find a tool somewhere that will help guide it into place. There we go. It's in. Now here's the crazy part. I'm going to do this upside down, I think. And if I do it real careful, I may be able to get that in there without it pushing out. Probably not though. So I'm going to use one of my others to hold this thing in place while I guide this where it needs to be. There it is. It found it. And then we just tighten it down. If it's in the hex hole, it's not going to go anywhere. It will not twist. You just want to keep it lined up. Keep it from popping out. And then the tightening down of this screw pulls the grip right into place. All right, now the detent pin works as it should. And the grip is on, feels good. I like it. Okay, next thing we're gonna do is change out the safety. All right, you know, I did something that I should have done before, and that's to take the upper off of this rifle. A lot of times when I'm doing things for the camera, I'm not thinking like I normally would if I was just doing it by myself. So I'm thinking about what you're seeing and about the camera angle, and I don't stop and think about common sense things. So forgive me for that. So we're gonna use our punch and our hammer. And we're gonna drift the roll pin right out. Doesn't take much, and it's out. And off comes your safety. Save the roll pin. Now, Krebs gives you one just in case you drop it, because you know that can happen. You don't have to use it if you save yours, but it's always nice to keep them on hand. There's one roll pin and one Krebs Custom safety. I'm getting to be a real fan of Krebs. You know, I mean, I have never yet found a firearm that wasn't improved with a Krebs safety and a Hogue grip. They're just not that expensive, and they're really good products. All right, so I'm going to put this on here, just where it goes. I guess it goes right about there. And that's the way it looks when it is where it should be. And you can get it started just with your fingers. I can find where it goes in the safety selector pin in the rifle. And this is already engaged, so it's not going to move. It's already in there part way. And then you can use, actually what's smart is to use a larger punch to get it started so it doesn't slip. You have a little more surface area with a larger punch. Doesn't take much, just drift it in a little ways until you get to the safety lever. And then you just want it inside enough so that it actually doesn't snag on anything. It should be equidistant on both sides. So as you look in there at your roll pin, it should be the same. And you could probably just kind of press it with your hand to fine tune it. Yeah. You don't want to scratch anything. You don't want to feel anything either. You don't want to feel anything that's going to catch or snag. All right, now, that is nice. A Hogue grip and a Krebs Custom safety. Nothing could be better than that. I love it. One of these days, I'm actually going to take this plunger out of here. It's not really that hard to do. Just to see what this trigger feels like without that second stage, because it's really quite stiff. I think this would be a very light trigger, and you know, you should never do that, by the way. I wasn't thinking there. Another example of how I don't do things when I'm on camera that I would normally do. When your hammer flies up and doesn't have the firing pin to hit, it hits something else, so you don't want to do that. Learn from my mistakes, folks. So, yeah, I would really like to know what this trigger feels like without that second stage. It's probably not great, but it's interesting, and I'd like to try it out. All right, so we're going to put this back together again. I'm going to push my takedown pins out, just like in an AR-15. I'm going to put my upper on. Of course, this takedown pin, whether it's on an AR-15 or on this rifle, is the hardest always. The back one is easy. Look at that. See, you can reach the safety and the magazine drop at the same time. And that is the sign that this grip is in the right position and you have something that you can really use. My hands are not the biggest. I'm sure there's people with much bigger hands than mine and longer fingers, and if you have longer fingers than mine, you may not need this fix. All right, just for comparison, I got out my Colt government carbine. This is an A2, and this has that registered military government law enforcement roll stamp on it. Now this was got back in the day when that roll stamp actually meant something. When this was purchased originally, it was for a police department. This was not available to civilians at the time it was new. Nowadays you can get these with the roll mark and you can buy them as a civilian, and they are more expensive and they're collectible. I'm not sure why, but they charge more money for them. Anyway, so here's what's interesting about this. So I'm trying to compare the safety on the Sig556 as well as the magazine drop. Now it's definitely closer, so let's compare the two. Your magazine drop, the center of the magazine drop to the web of the pistol grip on the Colt A2 government carbine, and probably the same on all Colt or even AR-15s in general, is 3.5 inches, okay? Let's see what it is on the Sig. I'm sure it's more. From the center of the pin to the web, even with the Hogue grip, is 4.5 inches. That's a full inch more. It definitely feels like a longer stretch. And after carrying this for a while, this almost feels kind of silly. It feels like I overreach it. So, you know, it's okay, but I'm actually pressing it with my first knuckle there, not the pad of my finger. And it's not a problem at all. I'm used to doing it. But this one winds up right on the pad of my finger, which, you know, it is what it is. All right, so the trigger from the center of the trigger bow to the web of the hand in the pistol grip is 2 3/4 inches on the Sig. On the Colt A2, it is 2 3/8 inches. So even that's a little different. I'm not sure which is better or worse, but just for those who are interested. Now, the safety, see if I can do this awkward angle here. The safety on the AR-15 compared with the Sig is very mushy. I mean, it works and it clicks, but it doesn't feel near as positive. And I'm just used to this. It's an old safety, it's definitely worked in, but it doesn't have the kind of positive click. It has like a couple of spots in it where it can hang up and stop. And when I'm in my firing position, it is pointed straight down into the knuckle of my thumb, like the Sig556 Krebs Custom safety is, but not the original, okay? Now let's measure from the web of the grip is 1 1/4 inches to the safety. On the Sig, it is 1 5/8 inches. Okay, so it's a little further back, but it does not have any hang-up spots. It is a smooth acting safety all the way through. Now, you know, that probably is not a big deal for most people, and it really isn't a big deal for me at all either. But I got to admit, having this at this angle for the pad of my thumb to take down like that, and then having it go straight down into my knuckle, just like on the AR-15, to go up, it's really nice. And there's enough surface area there that I can get that and engage it with a tremendous amount of confidence. It is really nice. So all the controls and all the manual of arms on this rifle, in my opinion, are superior to the AR-15. I like the toggle switch. You pull it down and pull back your charging handle to hold the bolt open. which is great. That is easier to use than on the AR-15. You can get aftermarket adapters that will do that to the AR-15, make it easier, but it's not quite as nice as this natural toggle position here. This is really nice. And then to drop your bolt, you just put the magazine up and push this up. It's very natural. It's no slapping from the side, it's just an upward motion, which I think is better. I like the safety. I really kind of like the safety being on both sides, because if I happen to be looking at this side for some reason, I can see the condition of the weapon if I'm curious. And I like the charging handle, like the AK. I've always preferred that over rear charging of the AR-15. So this rifle has a lot of potential, and I'm growing to love it. It has a folding buttstock, and I like that. So there's more and more reasons to like this rifle. I'm really becoming fond of it. And if you find one, grab it with confidence, because you can definitely, if you can pick it up for under $1,000, you'll always be able to get your money out of it, I guarantee it. And these are only going to be collector's items worth more money as time goes by. I'm pretty confident of that. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's helped. This is Max Headspace 9mm. Have a good one.
If you like this video, go ahead and consider hitting the like button. If it's your first time watching, go ahead and subscribe. And if you want to support me and my channel, go check out my Patreon. The link is in the description.